welcome to today's episode of Velocity Kinetics. Today's episode is a mini review of Honda NY1. I've got one as a courtesy car today whilst my Civic is being serviced. This is also my first experience of a purely electric car. I have never driven a fully electric car. The Swace obviously being partially electric. I have driven it, tried to coax it in its EV only mode as best as I could, and it was an interesting experience to say the least. It's an SUV, unfortunately for my liking, but it's I thought I was going to be given the 58 plate Jazz that was sat on the forecourt today, so this is quite a step up over what I thought I was going to be given. So first impressions of the car. The guy from John Banks did give me a walkthrough on how to drive it, and yes, on the one hand he's not wrong. It is almost teaching you how to suck eggs. But when I did have a small gap and did just press the throttle hard to get up to speed, well, my stammering should explain just how, even in a Honda SUV, just how sort of mind-blowingly it is. It just took off. You really do need to almost, I won't say you need to plan ahead exactly for pulling away in an electric car, but you do need to have a think more than what you would normally do when you're pulling away. It doesn't, I suppose you've got to undo a lot of muscle memory with it. It's a learning experience, I would suppose. The interior is quite nice in this car, quite plush, leather seats. I've even got a Thunderbird seat. I could sit there and be like, I'm trying to think, it's an end of a Monsters Inc. video film where he's playing around an electric seat, or like we call it, a Thunderbird's seat. Steering is quite nicely weighted, although it is a bit vague, as in because it's all electric. The brake pedal, because it's brake by wire, it's always going to be sort of vague, but there is a next level vagueness to it that I can't, in the short 3 miles back from the dealership, I just haven't been able to get used to. The throttle is also a bit vague as well. But again, probably muscle memory, not going to hold it against it too much. I need to sort of readjust my way of driving with it, but the sensation through the pedal isn't as nice as it could be. I've even got a paddle gearbox on this, which I'm not quite sure what I'm shifting through if I were to choose to shift. I imagine I'm just controlling the torque through it. The paddles have got a nice feel to them, but I'm sure that's just the same. They feel like the same paddles. Actually, no, not quite, actually, because the back of my Civic's got something here a bit ribbed. I think it's to remind you it's a... you can't see it in camera, on shot, actually. On the plus paddle on the right here, on my Civic, it's got like 2 rubber grooves in it, which is probably for when you're in the dark, you associate it with shifting up. We'll have a bit of a walk round, I think. The car is still on. One thing I can understand very quickly how people get range anxiety, because a bit of me is like, I'm sure I wouldn't have that bad a range anxiety if I had one of these or had an electric car in general. In my drive from the dealership to my home, which is not even 4 miles, if that, I've lost 4% charge. Now, given this is this might be the dealership's workhorse, it might just be that the battery's being worked hard. But it's got nearly 5,300 miles on the clock as we sit at the moment. I don't know if you can hear that whirring noise in the background. I've left the car on because I just want to show you the interior. So I'm just, because this Pixel 8 won't flip round like my Samsung would, I'm going to have to stop here and we'll see how we go. So I'm just going to apologise now. I think I've put this on 0.5 zoom to sort of give me a slightly wider field of view. So I apologise if things are a tiny bit distorted. But we've got a computer readout here. One I'd have to get used to. I'm not a fan of the full electronic dashboard, but they do have their merits. They do have their plus points. Minimal switch gear here. Like I say, we've got, as you can see, we've got paddles, plus and minus. Forward view, sideways view. I mean, the A-pillar here is not in a great position. I think it would be better if the wing mirror was in a different position because I think that's what's robbing me of sightline from that direction, or at least with how I've got my seat at the moment, it feels like I'm being robbed of sightline. Got a nice glove box here, got this blue LED trim going on, or I don't know if it's LED or whether it's just some sort of brush effect into it all. Got my gear selection down here. Reverse weirdly is on a toggle, but actually, you know what, it didn't feel that weird getting used to it today when I've had to put it in reverse a couple of times. And then we've got our drive mode, so probably eco, sport and normal. Handbrake, which is a switch, and then we've got brake hold, much like my Swace and my, actually not my Civic actually, because my Civic I can put it in brake hold without a seatbelt on. It won't engage brake hold if you haven't got your seatbelt on. Nice little cubby hole here, feels well made, nice. The seats are surprisingly comfortable, and I say surprisingly, and I haven't quite got this where I would want it. The bit I don't like on here is all of this. I've got my heated seat on. I've had a stomach bug and been in bed for the last 24 hours, so I feel like I've been beaten all over with a piece of 2x4. I feel horrible at the moment, so I suppose I'm glad because of how much my left knee is hurting from laying in bed for all that time. I'm glad it's an automatic. I'm not going to go into any of this because it's not mine to play around with too much, but I mean, the screen is quite responsive, but it is not, I don't know, I don't like it that much. I don't know what was wrong with buttons. Maybe it's just me being weird. Could just be me being weird. But steering wheel's a nice shape, nice thickness, got a nice feel to it. Doesn't feel like it's intruding too much. I say feel is quite good for electric, but it is a bit on the vague side in terms of feeling. That's it turning off. Right, let's have a look at the outside, shall we? So this is the size of getting in. It's quite nice. Doors have got a nice weight to them, not too big. Sorry, NY1, I beg your pardon. NY1. Let's see what it's like for getting in the back. That I'm not holding out an awful lot of hope for. Oh. Well, I mean, that's more or less in my position, and plenty of room for me. Back seat feels quite comfortable. The headrest's a bit low at the moment. Fair bit of headroom for me, although you just need to be on a slightly bumpy road and I would start catching. Granted, I've got a hat with a thick seam, the way it sort of meets in the middle from all four pieces, it's a bit thick, but you don't need to be wearing any sort of special hat for it, just for that to happen. Just in general, it won't take much to accidentally clonk yourself on the head. But overall, so far, it's okay, but I don't quite see why they couldn't have made it a smaller car, as in I'm not quite sure what is this offering us in SUV form. Right, let's give that a nice shut. Quiet doors. Here's my boot release. So we've got a manual boot release on this. That's my gubbins for charging. My Civic boot is bigger. My Civic boot is bigger. That is... God, they must be asking, what, 40 grand for one of these? I don't know the price point of these brand new, so I don't... You can see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see what's underneath here. Tiring fellas. That is a bit on the disappointing side, and the boot is very heavy. A piece of my driveway is falling to pieces right there. I mean, I'm nearly at the end of my driveway here, and I can't quite get the car and open boot into, well, just about. Yeah, I can. Still in one time zoom. That's a disappointment. Nice thump on it though. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's well made. Not my cup of tea on the looks front. Well, let's try a bonnet pop, see what we get. Right. This is going to be a bit of a mess, 2 seconds. That's all we get under the bonnet. It took me a few minutes to work out where the catch was. I couldn't feel where that was for a minute. And then it took me an age to find where this was, because even though it's painfully obvious that it lies along here, the way it lays down in here, it looks like it all connects up. It's a very, very heavy bonnet. Disappointing. I mean, I appreciate there's not much to see under the bonnet of an electric car, but come on. Yeah. But I suppose if you don't want to get worried about putting things down in the wrong place, it's quite obvious. All you need to do is your screen wash, brake fluid. That's how far it's actually pointing. Screen wash, and then your brake fluid. That would have been helpful if I'd been pointing. I will blame. Still not feeling too good. So if you see what I mean by how that lays along there, it's painfully obvious now that it's all the one thing, but it does look like it connects up somehow. Right. Oh! What a bang. What a bang. Not even straight on my driveway, and it doesn't fit very well. Well, maybe. I don't know. So, overall, my thoughts on the Honda NY1. It's okay. It's still not going to win many favours with me because it's an SUV. The boot is very disappointing for a car that size. Appreciate they've got to fit the batteries in and they're trying to keep the centre of gravity down, but it doesn't mean they couldn't have given it a longer boot. I mean, everything's well made. The bonnet's very heavy. The doors have a nice weight to them when they shut. The boot's got a nice weight, maybe a bit too heavy perhaps, or at least too heavy, it's nearly too heavy for it not to be an electronic tailgate. It's probably the best way to put it. The seats, comfy. The moving motion on them for being electronic, comfortable. Brain needs to be reprogrammed for driving it to not accidentally plough into the back of anyone. Throttle, brake, vague. Very vague. There are worse, but it'll probably take a bit of getting used to. But as it's a mini review, on the few little bits of driving I've done, I'm meant to go somewhere else today, but with how I'm feeling, I might not take it anywhere else apart from back to the dealership after it's time to pick up Mulder. That's what I've called this Civic. It has a name, it's called Mulder. I suppose I'm gonna have to get used to the SUV thing, because especially if we have to go electric, then there is no other way around it. A lot of people seem to think electric is the only way to go. It's more case, no, electric is an option. It's not the option, if that makes sense. Silky smooth driving. I can understand though why people talk about the theatre and pantomime of driving an electric car is gone, because there's no engine noise, and even with my little 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo in the Civic, you can make it make some fun noises when you want to tickle it, whereas in this all you're ever going to get is a at most. And I know people talk about, I think it was Toyota, it might even been Honda, talked about piping engine noise into the cockpit so people could feel that same sense of pantomime, but it's just not going to be there. It's not right. But again, it's all memory, isn't it? So for this mini review, not bad. Price point, I don't know, but probably a bit too expensive for what it is. But we will leave it there. I am going to attempt to not fall asleep again, because I've been asleep for nearly the last 24 hours on and off. Hence why I feel like I've been hit all over by a piece of 2x4. And that's my shoulder about to give up. This shoulder's about to give up holding the camera. So look after yourselves. If you're not well, get well soon. Drive safe, and we will see you in the next video.